Governor-General Sam Mostyn has sworn in the Albanese government's new cabinet ministers following a shake-up prompted by the retirement of Linda Burney and Brendan O'Connor last week. Political reporter Nicole Hegarty has the details. Nicole, who's in, who's out?
Hi Gemma, a few changes here as part of the first reshuffle of the Prime Minister's stint in charge of the government. We saw that Clare O'Neil and Andrew Giles have both been shunted from their roles in Home Affairs and immigration respectively. Now, a lot of that has come principally at criticism principally directed at Andrew Giles over the handling of a decision by the High Court in November of last year, which has led to the release of more than 150 immigration detainees into the community. As a result of that, Clare O'Neil has now moved across to housing and homelessness, and Andrew Giles has become the Minister for Skills and Training. In light of that, Tony Burke has moved into the portfolio of Home Affairs Minister, Immigration Minister, as well as retaining the portfolios that he held previously in terms of the Minister for the Arts, the portfolio rather, and he also continues on as the Leader of the House. Murray Watt changes from agriculture to move across to employment and workplace relations. Julie Collins then fills his shoes as Agriculture Minister while retaining the responsibility for small business. And in addition to that, we've seen Northern Territory Senator Malarndirri McCarthy, as what was widely anticipated, become the new Indigenous Australians Minister, picking up the reins from Linda Burney. So quite a few changes announced as part of this first reshuffle of the Albanese government. And we also saw, in terms of firsts, the Governor-General, the new Governor-General Sam Mostyn, conducting her first swearing in today. So a number of significant steps as part of this, Gemma.
Political reporter Nicole Hegarty, thank you. Federal Nationals MP Barnaby Joyce has apologised for comments comparing election votes to bullets 2 weeks after the assassination attempt on US Republican candidate Donald Trump. Mr Joyce made the comments at a protest against an offshore wind project, telling those attending to get ready to load that magazine. He's told Seven he was urging people to vote out the Albanese government.
I apologise for using that metaphor. I've done it on Sunrise. Well, I said that your ballot paper is the weapon you have. It shouldn't be a bullet. It should be the ballot paper. It should be the ballot paper and the ballot box.
Israel is promising to punish the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah for an alleged rocket strike on a sports field which killed 12 children at the weekend. Hezbollah has denied one of its rockets hit the football pitch in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Middle East correspondent Eric Torchek reports.
The streets of this small mountain village were filled not just with mourners, but with the caskets of 12 children killed on Saturday evening local time. They were aged between 10 and 16. The Israeli military says they were killed by a rocket sent by Hezbollah from southern Lebanon. They said the rocket was an Iranian model used by Hezbollah and that it was fired from a place northwest of the Majd al-Shams village. Hezbollah says that's a lie. It says it did not fire this particular rocket, although it claimed a number of launches earlier in the day on Saturday. It also claimed 2 launches on Sunday afternoon that struck an Israeli town further to the west. The Israeli government says Hezbollah is going to face a strong response in retaliation for this explosion and for the deaths of those children, with the Israeli Defence Minister saying that Hezbollah will pay a heavy price. Israel has been considering for some time whether or not to mount an offensive in southern Lebanon. It says it wants to push Hezbollah back away from the border area. It says it can no longer tolerate the number of attacks that Hezbollah has been launching and the ongoing displacement of thousands of Israelis from those northern communities. There's a similar displacement occurring in southern Lebanon from Israel's retaliation. The USA and the UK and many other nations are warning Israel not to escalate escalate the conflict any further. Israel is already stuck in this prolonged war in Gaza against Hamas, and there's already been warnings that taking it further into southern Lebanon could lead to an all-in regional conflict. Iran, which is Hezbollah's main backer, has already warned Israel against any new adventure, it said, inside southern Lebanon.
Polls have begun to close in Venezuela for an election that could end authoritarian President Nicolas Maduro's long hold on power. Mr Maduro has ruled the country since the death of socialist strongman Hugo Chavez in 2013. There's been mixed messages from the leader. He's pledged to respect the results of the election, which opinion polls suggest he will lose, but has also warned there will be bloodshed if he is defeated. Mr Maduro's challenger is Edmundo Gonzalez, a centrist former diplomat who has the backing of a coalition of opposition parties and has agreed not to pursue criminal charges against members of the Maduro regime if he wins. Housing advocates in New South Wales have welcomed the state government's plan to put an end to no grounds evictions, with some saying it's long overdue amid the housing crisis. Reporter Jessica Rendell has more.
This is indeed welcome news and something that housing advocates in New South Wales have been calling for quite some time now, especially when you consider that currently renters can be evicted at any time for any reason or even no reason at all. So this is something that the state government wants to change by implementing these new laws and requiring landlords to meet one of several thresholds before they can evict a tenant. So these thresholds include things like maybe the landlord is putting the house up for sale, or there are major renovations and repairs that need to be done that can't be done whilst the tenant is living there, and maybe the landlord might want to move into the property themselves. So there are a few reasons there that the state government has deemed common sense and reasonable, and landlords will have to provide evidence of this before they can evict a tenant, or they could face some tough penalties. And under these new laws, they're also looking to expand the notice period for evictions. So currently, so any leases that are less than 6 months, they will now have to have a notice period of 2 months before evicting a tenant, and any leases that are longer than 6 months will now have a notice period of up to 3 months. So this is something that Premier Chris Minns says he hopes will fix the mass exodus that we're seeing here in Sydney, with lots of young people leaving the city because the rental experience is just getting too expensive and too challenging. Take a listen.
At the moment, we're losing twice as many young people as we're gaining. If you drive around the streets of Sydney on a weekend, you could see 100 people waiting for an open house. Vacancy rates are at 1%. We've got a mess on our hands, and it's a massive drag on the New South Wales economy because our best and brightest are up and leaving. So we want to change the rules to put some more fairness and a little bit of balance in our rental laws.
Jess, what's been the response from housing advocates in New South Wales to this?
So they've largely welcomed this announcement. However, some say that it's taken too long to be implemented. One of the spokespeople for housing for the New South Wales Greens, Jenny Leong, says that the government's delay in this space has costed 40,000 people their homes. So she says that it's about time that something is done. She's also provided several anecdotes where renters were too worried to say anything to their landlords when there were faults in rental properties, because they were too worried that they could just simply be evicted instead of the problem being fixed. So this news has been a long time coming, and we do know as well that the Tenants Union of New South Wales have called this historic, and they say that it will bring the state in line with other jurisdictions, and that it's important when you consider that many renters in Sydney are now families with young children, as they are finding it even more challenging to break into the housing market and buy property. So people are renting for longer in New South Wales, and advocates say that they will be watching and working closely with the government to ensure that this bill is effective when it's put to Parliament.
A coronial inquest will begin today into a religiously motivated terrorist attack on Queensland's Western Downs that killed 2 police officers and a neighbour. Reporter Antonia O'Flaherty has more from Brisbane.
The Queensland coroner will be examining the evidence into that deadly shooting at the Wieambilla property on Queensland's Western Downs, and that happened on the 12th of December in 2022. Now, what we do know is that 4 police officers went to that property of Gareth and Stacey Train to conduct a missing persons check on Gareth's brother, Nathaniel, but police were met with an ambush, and Constables Rachel McCrow and Matthew Arnold were fatally shot, and the other 2 police officers were seriously injured. The neighbour, Alan Dare, attended the property as well after hearing the gunshots and an explosion, and he was also shot. So the coroner will be examining the circumstances around the deaths and also how the Trains acquired the weapons that were used in that shooting. Now, on the evening of that shooting, police raced to the scene, and there was a 6-hour siege that was brought to an end, when police shot dead Gareth, Stacey and Nathaniel. Now, this inquest will also be examining the police processes that led the officers to the property in the first place and the police response.
And Antonia, the family has spoken today.
For the first time, we heard from the families of the 2 slain police officers. Now, Judy McCrow, the mother of Rachel McCrow, spoke outside court here ahead of the inquest starting today, and she spoke about the overwhelming grief that the families have suffered. Here's what they had to say.
Rachel and Matthew were our gorgeous children who we miss so much. There's no escaping our devastating loss, the all-consuming grief and the tears. Our collective heart remains broken beyond repair. We've been robbed of a beautiful, caring daughter, a son who loved life and had so many adventures ahead of them. What unfolded in Wieambilla on December the 12th, 2022 should never have happened. We've never spoken directly to the media before, but today's different. As hard as it is to stand here, we know how important it is. That's because we don't want the loss of Matthew and Rachel to be in vain. We must persevere through our pain to honour their memory and strive for a safer tomorrow.
At least 70 people will be called to give evidence